He's here to help you with breeze, planting seeds and teaching skills. Teachers turn schoolyards to dreams. Who hates school gardens with ease?
Is your school garden going to overwhelm your summer volunteers and end up ugly, dried up, taken over by weeds, and looking like a waste of time and energy in the fall? Or is it going to be, easy peasy, filled and buzzing with butterflies and bees and ladybugs, and filled with food, medicine, herbs, and seeds? You're listening to the School Gardens with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Leila Amir Eskandari, and this is episode number 44. We are yet again talking about summer maintenance. We did talk about this topic in the last episode as well. And you might be thinking, why do you not let go of this topic, Leila? Well, because honestly, this is that time of year when you can actually be proactive to make sure that your garden is ready for summer. Because if you don't, do this, plant your garden with awareness and attention while you are having an eye on the summer, then your summer will end up not being ready. Your garden will end up not being ready for summer. In fact, this is not even the first time that we are focusing on this topic on this podcast. I did actually do 2 full episodes filled with a lot of practical information actually last year in June. I think those were episodes 4 and 5. Go ahead and listen in if you haven't listened to those, or go ahead and listen again and do a review of what I talked in those episodes, because I gave you a lot of detailed practical information there. Because the truth is, eliminating summer chores and reducing summer maintenance can't happen after the fact. It is, a series of strategies that you have to have and you have to employ and you have to put in place proactively. And the time to do that is right now, when you are refreshing your garden and you're starting to plant in it and all of that. Because if it was as easy as just planting and putting together a volunteer schedule, then all the school gardens would be successful. Unfortunately, instead, all of them are unsuccessful, ending up dried up and, weedy, unless they have, a full professional crew just dedicated to taking care of the garden all the time. And you might not have access to that type of crew because very rarely school gardens do. In fact, I just released a low-cost hour-long webinar on this topic, and I shared a lot of details and practical information, step-by-step guides and things like that on the webinar. The webinar is finished now, but if you want me to bring it back, just let me know in the comments. And I also released a class where I teach every little detail about how to build and grow a school garden with almost no summer maintenance. It's 60% off, I think, until end of day this Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. If you're interested, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. So, what are those proactive strategies that make the difference between a school garden that has overwhelming amount of summer maintenance and one that is almost summer maintenance free? Well, here's the list. First of all, we want to eliminate all weeds, all weeding. We don't want our summer volunteers to weed at all. Here's what you got to do about that. First of all, plant densely, because spacing is utterly overrated and it is fully misunderstood. So go do some research about that, and you can densely plant, a lot denser than you think. Plant densely to cover the soil so that weeds can't, fall on the soil and start growing. And if you don't do that, at least mulch properly and use the right type of mulch for the right type of garden. When you're building a new garden or refreshing an old garden, make sure that you use techniques such as sheet mulching to build or refresh that garden. And train your volunteers to never ever weed in your garden for 2 reasons. First of all, your garden, if you do all the mulching and dense planting and all of that, it will end up not having weeds at all. And if it has like a dandelion here and there, it doesn't matter. But your volunteers might not know the difference between a bolting and flower and seed producing vegetable like lettuce and weeds. They might think that those are weeds and they might weed them out. and you don't want that. So ask them to not ever weed. Now, let's talk about eliminating cleanups. If you want the right plants for a school garden at the right time, your volunteers will not need to do any cleanups for you. Your plants need to be selected and timed in a way that they are either harvested before you leave for summer or after you come back in the fall. That will also eliminate another chore, which is harvesting. Like, your community is welcome to harvest if you want them to, but that's more like enjoying the garden type thing rather than it being a chore that they have to do. Now, how to eliminate fertilizing during summertime? That would be a combination of starting with, first of all, a very good quality soil, implementing long-term soil building strategies such as hugelkultur, as well as selecting the right plants and timing them right. Not all plants can grow without fertilizing during summertime. An example of that is broccoli. There's plenty more plants that you can grow in your school garden, so it's okay to skip things like broccoli. Now, how do you make sure that your garden does not have any pests or diseases? First of all, biodiverse planting. I cannot emphasize this enough, and you should not underestimate the power of biodiversity. Also, start with very good quality soil. Again, that's super important. And ensure consistent and generous and also proper watering. That means make sure that your garden is super water conserving and your volunteers are very well trained on how to and how not to water the garden. Speaking of watering chores, you can do sub-irrigated planters, oja pots, drip irrigation, dense planting also. Mulching is very important to conserve water in the soil. And all of those techniques, and also techniques such as hugelkultur, when you're building or refreshing a garden, at the beginning of the season. And last but definitely not least, make watering super easy and efficient for your summer volunteers. That's the least you can do for them. By making sure the garden is easily accessible, and so are the equipment, the watering equipment, and also use the right tools for the job. No sprinklers and no watering cans. Of course, all of this in detail are discussed in my School Gardens with Almost No Summer Maintenance class. The link is in the show notes if you want to go ahead and check it out. And I can't wait to talk to you again next week in another episode. You've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and please share this episode with other teachers who might be interested in this topic. See you next week for a new episode.